Well, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And for my first video of this new year, what I thought I would do is just talk about my experiences using the Canon R5, the new Canon R5 Mark II, in comparison to the original R5. And I've had this camera since mid-2020 when it originally came out. So I've got several years of use with this camera. And then I wanted to wait several months after getting this one where I've had the time to use it on multiple photo shoots before I came on here and gave you all my thoughts and whether or not I would call it a recommendation to upgrade from this camera to this camera. And if I'm going to be fully disclosed here, I recorded a video on this topic a couple days ago and I was just editing it and it was way too long and too boring if you ask me. So I just want to come back on here, just kind of boil this down, cut it down to where, I'm just going to let y'all know from the onset that I was so happy with this camera that I really, for my use case, and if you watch this channel, you have to take that into account when I'm talking about the upgrades here, because this is how I use the cameras, and it's mainly doing studio type stuff with strobes, and I have been on some photo shoots, natural light, using this camera. But for my use case, I feel like this original R5 is good enough for what I need. And I just don't feel like they upgraded some things on this camera enough for me to warrant the price difference now that this one's come out, this one's been discounted. So if I were to, if we were having a conversation here and you asked me, which a lot of people have asked me now, is it worth the upgrade? And I would say probably not for the type of work that I do. And let's look back to it. This camera, this was, I guess, maybe the second mirrorless camera that I got. The first one was mainly more for video, but the first kind of camera that was going to replace my workhorses. And at the time I was using like the Nikon D850. And so this was the replacement for that, and the jump was tremendous. I mean, it was a sizable jump with the autofocus and everything, and hands down worth the upgrade from the DSLR days. And now we're looking at more of an incremental update to the Mark II version, where I just feel like the jump is a lot smaller. And there were some things on here too that I was hoping, I made a video several months ago about things I was hoping that they were going to address for the new version. One of them being the flip screen here, where they would maybe give us some. Let me just show you. I've got the Sony right here, and Sony has really set the benchmark, I think, for the mechanisms for these screens with what they've begun putting on all their cameras now, where you can pull it out from the body and then you get the full rotation with everything here. You get the screen rotating. There we go. And what this does is it allows you to pull this out and see at an angle even if you're tethered in the camera. And I was hoping that they would do something similar in this camera. And also, as you can see, let me flip the original out. I think it's the exact same mechanism. And you can see that the screen doesn't even line up flat with the body, and that can actually kind of play with you a little bit when you're trying to compose your shot, because the screen is actually not completely horizontal with the body here. And these are first world problems. Let me just say, I mean, the files coming out of these cameras, the focusing systems, everything about them is phenomenal. The dynamic range, it's so comforting when I go onto a shoot knowing that both of these cameras can handle anything I'm really throwing at them. And I'm going to show like some shots here, or some B-roll type stuff to demonstrate kind of what I'm talking about in the background of this video. But I have nothing bad to say about either one of these cameras. I'm happy to continue using the R5 here. And what I would have done is I've got two of these original bodies, and I would have traded them to get another one of the Mark II versions, and I'm just going to sit pat and use the original as like a backup to the Mark II version, because I just don't feel like the cost is worth it. And let's talk about the cost here too. So the new body here is $4,300. That doesn't include the grip. I like to have grips on my photo shoots, and the grip is going to be another $350. the deals on this camera, since this one's come out, they kind of rotate a little bit, so you have to catch it at the right time. A couple days ago, when I recorded the earlier version of this video, you could get, I've written it down, $2,800. You could get this whole setup, even with the grip. Since that time, like I said, a couple days ago, the grip is no longer included in that deal, but the camera price is still at $2,800. So it's a no-brainer for me, the value of this camera. And for those of you who have not stepped into the mirrorless game, it's a perfect time to jump and grab this, if that's something that you need. But overall, I just feel like if we're going to make the jump from this camera to where it was as big of a jump from the DSLR, as I mentioned, where I would just jump at the chance of upgrading, we're going to have to get something like the Sony A9 III here with the global shutter. For me, it's going to need to have the screen mechanism like the Sony here, and I feel like that might be down the road, maybe 1 or 2 generations, which is kind of a bummer, because I'm like everyone else in this field, and I enjoy new gear, getting new cameras, testing them out, and all that kind of stuff. But I just feel like that might be the next big jump based off of where we are now. These cameras are just, like I said, they are so good. I've got no issue taking a almost 5-year-old camera with me on a photo shoot, because I know what this guy can do, and it has never let me down in delivering stuff for my clients. So with that being said, let's just talk about some of the upgrades that I have noticed. The autofocusing system, it is a little bit snappier, I would say, in this camera. This autofocus system in the original, it was fantastic. It still is fantastic. The one thing about Canon, they're good about upgrading their firmwares, and so they can address things that, as I guess photographers use these cameras, report back to them, and then they issue firmware updates, which usually help add to some of the features of the cameras, or just enhancing them as they progress through time. But I feel like this focusing system is a little bit snappier. It's not perfect though, and I've seen just a lot of reviews on this camera where this is just the ultimate focusing system. But I have had situations where, for instance, I had a hockey shoot. We're on ice, dim light. I was between a couple of video sets where they had haze coming into my setup. And then with the hockey players, they were wearing helmets with the clear visors. But I could not get this camera to track on the face and eye detect on the player. A lot of times it couldn't pick them up, and they were starting away from me. And this was mainly in the action sequence portions of these setups that I was doing. But I had to take it off of face and eye detect and use the back screen with my thumb to set focus manually on the players, and then just kind of cross my fingers, hoping that throughout the action sequences, especially coming toward the camera, that it would maintain focus. And it was hitting probably maybe a little bit above 50% during that, which was very frustrating. Basically, if I kept it on the face and eye detect, and the player started moving, and it would lose focus, and then it wouldn't fire. And I'm on a setup with professional athletes, and we're on a clock. Like it was like 5 minutes for each one of these players, and so I was having a rough time with this camera. So it's not perfect. Those were hard conditions, but we aren't. I'm basically saying that the focus system in this is not a big enough improvement on its own for me to upgrade. Battery life, I couldn't see really much difference even with the new batteries in this camera. The IBIS system, I think, is maybe a little bit more improved, but it was so good in this one. That's kind of a scratch. The sync speed with strobes, it's still at a 200th of a second, the way I use the camera, so that is a scratch as well. One thing this camera does have is the bigger eyepiece here, and I believe that's probably for the eye-controlled autofocus, which is a bit of another source of frustration, because that is a feature that I feel like, if it worked 100% of the time, would be just really amazing to have in a camera. Now, I'm going to give you a use case for that too. So on the Navy photo shoot I had recently, where I am photographing a jersey, I like to use the 28-70 lens wide open, so then I can use depth of field as well as lighting, color, and all that kind of stuff to separate portions of the uniform. And I tried out that system. So you have to calibrate it to your eye, and it's got a little circle that moves around based off of, I guess, where your pupil is pointing within the frame here. And I never could get it 100% dialed on. It was close enough to where I could maneuver it around and hit focus on parts of the uniform, and I could do it really quickly, which was, really cool. And it was neat to use. And I'm also kind of pairing up with a, if you want to see the behind the scenes video, I'll link it up here. But they're shooting video at the same time as I am shooting still, so I got to be in and out fairly quickly. And this allowed me to dial in my focus just as fast as possible. And the issue was, as the day went on, the calibration, it got worse and worse, and so then I would have to recalibrate. And every time I recalibrated, even it was a little bit different based off of kind of where I was looking. Sometimes it might be off to the side a little bit here or here, and it didn't do what I wanted it to 100% of the time. And like I said, I'm not sure if it's based off the eye angle on the eyepiece here, or I was trying to, maneuver myself as best as I could, but as it went on and on, it just got less and less accurate. So I ended up, stopped using it, and then just went back to the old school way of just using the back screen with my finger to set focus on, the portions of the uniform that I wanted it to. But it drives me crazy because I can tell that if that system was just dialed in, and I haven't heard of really anyone having the perfect experience using that system, but I think probably everyone that's tried it, you could get a sense of how good it potentially could be. So that, I'm going to, hopefully they can release firmware to update that. It's really, the potential is there, but the execution is not quite there just yet. So that's just another thing I wanted to share here. So ultimately, keep your eyes out if you're in the market for a new camera, you're looking for a backup body. I highly recommend the R5, the original R5 at the price point where it is now. And I just feel like we are a generation or two away where we get that global shutter, which will give us the unlimited sync speeds and all the other benefits of having that global shutter technology. And then if Canon specifically would address the screen here, I think we'd have a home run hitter. So wanted to, hopefully I cut this down. I'm thinking this is going to be checking my time clock over here about half the time of the previous version of this video. So feel like it's worthy, please hit that thumbs up. If you want to see more content just like this in the future, hit that subscribe button and the little bell there so YouTube will let you know when I'm back on. In the meantime, follow me on social media, or you can find me on social media at quantzphoto on Instagram and at ProLightMods on Instagram. Any questions, comments, if y'all have used this camera and want to share your thoughts about it, please leave those down in the comments below. Y'all stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see you all soon in the next video.